Good afternoon and welcome to the March 1st regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. I'm going to cover the consent agenda first. First off, well, we'll cover it all. I need a recommendation. Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor O'Brien. Yes.
I may, Your Worship, could we break it out into
I was
separate?
just going to ask.
Thank you.
All right, you want to break them in separately? Fair enough. Then I need a motion for the minutes of council meeting. Councillor Patterson, are you going to do that? And second by Councillor Chandler. Discussion?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to bring up the notice that on the February 17th council meeting minutes as presented, Section 21-057 regarding the firefighter tax credit is showing on the minutes that Councillor O'Brien opposed this motion. I just wanted to correct that I did not oppose this motion. I was in full support of this motion, and it was, as I understand, unanimously carried. Anyways, it reflects the fact that I was opposing it. I just want to correct that too, saying I did support this motion.
Let's consider that corrected because I remember distinctly it was a unanimous decision. So
thank you for that.
Fair enough. Any other changes to the minutes? I'll call the question on the minutes. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Approval of council meeting agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Delegations. We have a full slate of delegations on today's agenda, so we'll bring up the first one. Sergeant Bill Webb, retired from the Parksville Legion Branch 49 on homeless veterans. Do I address you as Sergeant?
Not anymore, Mayor. You can just address me as Bill Webb.
All right. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead. Feel free. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm actually from the Courtenay Branch 17, and along with the Comox Valley Legions and the Oceanside Legions, we've come together to talk to you about a serious issue in our communities, and that's veterans homelessness. Currently, right now, between the Comox Valley and Oceanside, we've identified 19 homeless veterans living in our community. Those veterans range from the absolute homeless to the near homeless. In January of last year, our Member of Parliament, Gord Johns, called a meeting with the Qualicum Parksville Legions to talk about veterans homelessness. And since then, our two communities have come together with a total of 6 legions to start advocating for housing. As most of you probably know, that in 2018, the federal government launched their national housing strategy with a $55.5 billion commitment. And in that report, veterans were one of the marginalized groups identified in need of priority housing. Since that time, no housing has been committed for veterans in any community across the country. So we have been working the streets in Qualicum, Parksville, and the entire Comox Valley to advocate at our community councils and our community partners to start building bridges to get our veterans off the street and keep those that are at high risk from ending up on the street. This past month, the BC Yukon Command Royal Canadian Legion launched a program called Leave the Streets Behind. It's a small initiative to deal with veterans that are marginalized and homeless. And we're grateful that the town of Qualicum Beach was able to pass a resolution in council supporting our efforts in applying for funds through the Veterans Wellbeing Fund through Veterans Affairs and the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Agency for grant money to launch a targeted study between the Comox Valley and Oceanside to identify, one, the veterans that are at risk, and what we can do to better assist those veterans in identifying them. London, Ontario, this past month, I'm pleased to say, they are the first Canadian community to achieve a functional zero veterans homelessness. They were able to do this by working with their community partners and local councils to obtain a Built for Zero Canada veterans community in London, Ontario. So we're asking today from the city of Parksville for written support for our efforts, for our applications for funding for our studies, and for the city of Parksville to match funding up to $3,000. And that would be funding that we would raise through our community and through our local legions. I'm pleased to say that today we received unanimous support from the Comox Valley Regional District for this and their commitments to funding. We received verbal support so far, not written yet, from the Village of Cumberland. This afternoon, we'll be meeting with the City of Courtenay to present to them with regards to our applications for our grants to the Canadian Mortgage Housing Agency and the Veterans Wellbeing Fund. My hope is that our communities between the Comox Valley and Oceanside can be the second community in Canada to reach a net zero veterans homelessness in our community. According to Veterans Affairs statistics, there should only be 14 homeless veterans on Vancouver Island. Since January of last year, 2020, we've now identified 19 homeless veterans in both Comox Valley and Oceanside communities. Based on the recent homeless studies that have come out for 2020, homeless veterans make up more than 10% of the total count of homeless people in our communities. And we believe that to be, it shouldn't be that way. We believe that our efforts fall in line with the community plan for housing for marginalized people in our communities, not just veterans. And I want to again thank the council for allowing us to present today. I did ask Scott Harrison to give the Qualicum Beach side of the work that they've been assisting us with. I don't see him on the list.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation today. Are there any questions? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Webb, for coming today. I can understand the need is very great, not only for veterans, but for all the people that are homeless. Are we looking at mostly men in this 19 people, or are there women as well?
Right now, without me shutting off my Zoom, I believe we're about 17% women.
I'm sure they're more vulnerable than the men. And in total, where would you build this housing? Would it be built where? In the middle of Oceanside, or?
We've had some commitments from the town of Qualicum. We've had no commitments from any of the civic bodies in the Comox Valley, but we would look to the Oceanside area. It's a little closer to Nanaimo, where there's psychiatric and other counseling and other services for veterans that are more readily available than the Comox Valley. And
are you suggesting the community should donate the land?
We're not even at that point to look for any of those kind of, to
Right.
even ask for those kind of offers. We're not there.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Bill Webb. Thank you, Bill, for your presentation. It was very interesting. It's a known fact that that's going on, and it's quite sad. The suicide rate with veterans is very high across Canada. You know, obviously part and parcel of the homelessness that's been growing over the years. But I guess my question to you is, with all of the capabilities of the military and, you know, with options to get outbuildings and all those kind of things, is that even something that could be done? Like, in other words, could ATCO trailer systems be set up somewhere on a temporary basis? I know they'd looked at stuff like that for the Qualicum Airport at one point. And I just bring it up just because it's sort of like almost that you could almost be mobilizing something like that, you know, in support of our veterans here. So I'm just a question.
With regards to national defense, the answer to that would be no. In 2018, the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs tabled a report to the House of Commons, and shortly afterwards, we had a federal election. That report, the recommendations that were in that report, one of them was for specific targeted housing for veterans across the country. That report has been sitting on a shelf in Ottawa. Member of Parliament for Powell River North Island, Rachel Blaney, who's the current Veterans Affairs critic, is going to be resubmitting that report to the House of Commons either this week or next week. Veterans Affairs is not in the housing business, and they always tell veterans to contact either BC Housing or other local agencies. So we're struggling with that. Homes for Heroes, which is out of Calgary, has partnered with ATCO and built 2 veterans communities, one in Calgary and one in Edmonton. They are looking to expand now to Vancouver Island. They've approached Victoria and had 0 interest. We've now been in negotiations with them and said that the North and Central Island would be more appropriate. The Village of Cumberland has stated they have 10 acres of property that's set aside specifically for housing initiatives like this. So that may be an option down the road, but we have nothing in the plans for housing.
Thank you. Follow up for Councillor Chandler.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Bill, for the update on that. I did see that about Calgary. It was about, I think, a year ago they launched it, or a year and a bit ago. It looked fantastic, and I'm super happy to hear they did it in Edmonton as well. And again, I'm not suggesting that we just put trailers somewhere to help someone, but the point being is that it's, you know, it takes a long time. I can imagine those projects took at least a couple, 2-3 years to get up and running. And so I'm just thinking of something in the meantime, just to try to alleviate the stress of the system. So anyways, great info, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, and Councillor Patterson, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Bill, for coming in and doing a great presentation. I was going to actually mention the Homes for Heroes. I've researched that a bit as well. And I guess because some of the veterans are dealing with PTSD, it makes a difference, wouldn't it, with the type of housing that you would require? Am I correct, or
Yes, typically, even still today in our communities, when we say the word veteran, most people think of the World War II or Korean War veteran. The average age of a veteran today in our communities across the country is 46 years old. And 50% of those veterans have kids that are facing near homelessness or homelessness. So the demographics are changing, and the needs for housing for veterans has changed drastically over the past 10 years. So we need to have, first and foremost, like any other homeless community, we need to have the resources in place. Then we need to build the housing.
Thank you. Follow up?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm wondering if we could hear from, oh, I guess he's gone. I was going to say Scott Harrison. You were saying that he was working with you in Qualicum, so I thought it might be interesting to hear what he has to say, but he seems to be gone. Unless you could add to that, Bill.
Scott's been quietly pushing from behind the scenes. I'm pretty sure everybody could reach out and send him an email. Personally, Scott was one of the driving forces to get a resolution passed at the town in Qualicum, and support our efforts to move forward with a specific targeted study. Our work with SOS in the Oceanside area and with the Comox Valley Coalition to End Homelessness. We've done a lot of work with them, and we hope to continue to work with them strategically to meet the needs of all of the town, villages, and cities homeless initiatives, not just specifically with veterans, but we need to make sure that we're hitting all the goals for our communities.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Bill, for your presentation. Several years ago, I recall the Legion 49 here in Parksville had looked at where their Legion is situated and seeing about doing any additions, like going upwards or whatever for some housing units and everything at that location. Are you familiar if they're still trying to do something to that effect?
I'm not specifically sure about any capital projects that they may be planning for Parksville. I know that in the Comox Valley, there are 3 legions that serve 24,000 people or so. We're now working strategically to look at what we can do here in the Comox Valley with regards to the properties we own. It's difficult. And it's going to be more than a couple of years to do something like that. There's only one facility on Vancouver Island that serves homeless veterans. It's in Victoria. There's only 6 beds. It's called Cockrell House. And the second facility is in Greater Vancouver. It's called Honor House. And their wait lists are 2 years plus to assist homeless veterans.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb, thank you very much for this very worthwhile initiative that you've taken upon yourself. It's very important, and I appreciate the effort you've made. I'm just trying to get down as a little bit of clarity as to your presentation. I understand that you would like at this time or sometime in the near future a resolution from council to support your application for grant funding anyways to support your efforts. I understand that portion of it, but then I'm a little confused. You're also asking to provide matching funding for the first 3,000 raised to support this application. So my question being is are you asking for a contribution as well from the city of Parksville, as well as Cumberland and Qualicum Beach and other municipalities? Or is this $3,000 total, or how do the dollars and cents work out on this bill?
So we've asked each community that we've approached. So the 4 communities in the Comox Valley, Qualicum and the Comox Valley Regional District are the first 2 to offer matching funding up to $3,000 to put towards our targeted study. So we're asking all of the municipalities to meet those commitments from Qualicum Beach and the Comox Valley Regional District.
Thank you. Just to wrap it up here a little bit, Bill, first off, thank you again for a great presentation. We tend to forget, if we're not involved directly, about the veterans and the homelessness and the trials and tribulations that they go through after coming back representing our country. And it's a shame that it's not being taken care of. I made a note here just as you were talking. It would probably just take the repairs that we spent on one submarine to solve the problem right across this country. And that's kind of a sad statement of affairs. So first off, I'd like to make the motion that we provide support to the Legions for their, in the form of a letter. And I think that you can tell us what you want in that letter, Bill. I would appreciate it if this passes. So I'll make that motion. It's seconded by Councillor Greer. Discussion? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. In your motion, can you please include the $3,000?
Can we do
Or
them?
do you want them separate?
I was going to do them separately, if you
Okay,
don't mind.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the thought, though. All right, so the resolution to provide the support, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Secondly, I would like to make a resolution that we provide the $3,000 to match the funding as necessary, up to a maximum of $3,000. Seconded by Councillor Chandler. Discussion? I'm sorry. From the contingency, council contingency? From council contingency. I always forget that little important part. All right, so any discussion? All those in favor? And the last part of it is I happen to have sat on the committee back 10 years ago that Councillor Patterson was referring to about expanding the existing Parksville Legion. And at that time, there was some talk about having facilities for homelessness or for the veterans that were down on their luck. I would certainly like to see if we could resurrect that and bring it back now that the BC Housing has come up with with a fair amount of funding on a lot of these issues. I think maybe we might be able to take this in a different direction and maybe have some success with it. So if you could carry that message back, I would love to go back and sit on that committee and, help with whatever way we can.
That would be great. We'll keep you posted with the Habitat for Humanity work we're doing as well.
Thank
As a
you.
partner.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and good luck on this.
Thank you.
All right. Next delegation. And this is for our development at 146 and 160 McCarter Street. Ah, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. We did get a call from the developer saying that they were trying to join as well, and they sent a message, but there is no way for them to respond on which delegation that they were with. So I don't know if it's possible to tie them in at this point or not.
Are they online?
My understanding is that they are waiting online. Yes.
What's the name?
Penny and Bruce.
Yep. We do have that person. Okay. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay. Now, if we can adjust that so that Penny doesn't look like she's falling off the bottom of the screen. Oh. If you can just adjust your camera down a little bit, Penny, please, if you would, just so we can see you.
There.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, walking around.
I'm just moving it over to Bruce.
All right.
Well, thank you, Evan.
There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, please, folks, go ahead.
Okay. We haven't prepared a PowerPoint presentation because we don't really have anything in addition to what was submitted for the development permit in terms of, we haven't produced additional drawings or anything like that. And we're assuming that you are familiar or have the ability to look at the drawings right there on screen. So there is no PowerPoint as part of this. We wanted to talk to you in a very general sense and about the proposal. This is something that Bruce McClay has wanted to do in Parksville for some years. It's been in our office for some years now in trying to figure out how to do something in Parksville on this land. And he has been looking at it for a number of years. We've been exploring different options for a number of years. Originally, when he came to us, the idea was that he wanted to give back to Parksville in some way, find a need that Parksville had, And several years ago when we started, this was going to be a seniors housing and dedicated to seniors with a live-in caretaker. It was never intended to be assisted living or something like that, but it would be, the intention was to, as much as possible, to provide some sort of affordable rental for seniors. That has since changed. There's been it's been a number of years since we first looked at it. And Bruce would like to, in some way, cater to the seniors, but he would like to have this as a rental property and dedicate a portion of it, say 20%, to reduced market, less than market rates. So that's what he is looking at the moment. He's looking at committing at 100% rental, and then a portion of that would be at a reduced rate. Our understanding in discussions with Bruce is that rental housing, even though Bruce is just finishing off a rental housing right now, it's still in very much demand in Parksville, and could benefit from more rental housing. The approach to this was, design-wise and form and character, was always to make it financially affordable, but also not make it, even though it's rental, the old ways in the 70s and 60s, 70s and 80s, when we did rental housing, they were very much sort of dumbed down to keep them really cheap, really affordable, really online with all the government assistance. Now the rental's being done without a lot of government assistance, but we really didn't want to dumb it down. The new standard for housing is the 8-foot floor to ceiling standard is now gone for all condos. We wanted to take those kind of principles and design principles and put it into the rental housing as well. So they're not really getting a dumbed down version of what you would get as a condo. They're getting a quality project, and a quality project, for instance, in the floor to ceiling heights, but also in the materials, the looks, and do something that's positive for the city. One of the difficulties of the site is just making it affordable. Bruce is committed to having an on-site caretaker. We managed to get 43 units onto the property, with commercial on the first floor and parking on the first floor, behind the building and under the building. And to have a live-in caretaker, the general rule of thumb for a developer is you need about 60 units in order to make that worthwhile. So we're down to 43 units plus one for the caretaker. So we're down to 42 units. So it's right about the break-even point for Bruce. But Bruce is really committed to doing this for Parksville. Parksville's been good to Bruce, and he acknowledges that. So that's why we have the number of units, and that's why we need a couple of the variances, both to accommodate the parking and to accommodate the number of units. My understanding is at the last council meeting, there were some questions about the number of 1-bedroom units, and from the research that Bruce has done, he's coming up with that the 2-bedroom units are very, very difficult to, they just don't rent as well as the one bedrooms. For rental housing, it's the 1-bedroom units that are really in demand, and that is really of need in Parksville, probably in other places too, but this is specific to Parksville. So we went to advisory design panel. They made some comments, and well thought out, justified comments. We made some improvements. We strengthened some of the things that they liked, and we altered some of the things that we hadn't thought about before, including and also I think improved the building by taking the design approach on the front of the building and wrapping it around to the back as well, so that it really is a nice looking building from all sides. We did as much stepping as we could fit in and still maintain the same number of units. So one of the things that we also did was pull forward the main entry canopy to give more coverage, to give more presence to the residential entry to the building. And to give a place, there's a couple of benches there, you give a place for people to wait to be picked up for a taxi, just to have more coverage as they get out to the street, and also a place to sit and gather and just enjoy the neighborhood as well. We see it as being a very positive development. We think it's a pretty good looking building and a good development for this particular site. The variances mostly deal with parking, but there's also there is a yard variance on one side. It's 0 lot to 3 sides and 4 meters to one side. The funny thing about these corner lots of this shape is what you'd think would be the side yard is really the rear yard. So it's kind of a little bit odd that way. But that's just the nature of how these lots are determined and what is the rear yard versus side yard when you get into a corner lot situation. Most of the parking is a result of the existing condition and not altering that in a very significant way. Along the lane, there is existing parking there already that we would like to maintain. It is on the property, so we would like to maintain it as part of this development as well. I'm not sure if I've addressed all the things that came up in the last council meeting, but I certainly welcome your questions, and Bruce is available if you would like any further clarification on his intention for the project.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to open it up here for questions. That's probably the easiest way to find out if we've given all the information that's needed. So are there any questions for the delegation? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Kevin and Mr. McClay, for taking the time to answer questions. It just makes it a lot easier to do the one-on-one. So I appreciate your effort in showing before council here. Just a couple comments. First off, I want to compliment you on the design of the building. I'm blown away. It's a beautiful design. I'm very impressed with it. It would be a real asset. And so thank you for that. You did a great job on that. You already addressed the issue regarding bedrooms and so forth. You felt that the 2 bedrooms ones were difficult to rent out, that didn't have as much market for that. My only comments on that was we were hoping to have a few more 2 bedrooms at that location, just based on the fact that if it's any single parents and single families that could possibly go in there, they obviously need another bedroom for their child. And in that regard, and especially made me even more hopeful when you said that Mr. McClay was thinking about 20% being at the affordable housing rate. So that would be a real advantage for a single parent family to be able to locate in that downtown core, which is very important to them because it's a very central location and close to schools and everything else. So that was just my first consideration, if there's any chance to maybe increase the 2 bedrooms. I understand you were at 43, and with the caretaker suite, you're down to 42. I was suggesting like a 2/3, 1/3 split, but you know, that's totally, you understand the market, gentlemen, better. It was just an idea, I thought. Any comments on that, or?
Well, yeah, I will comment on it. Because of today's codes, which have, for seismic restraint, have hugely changed in the last 2 codes, maybe 3 codes. We can't take a unit anymore and change it above. We have to stack the units. Otherwise, it gets very complex and very difficult. So if we were to change it, we have to take a row and go all the way up with it. So that affects how many units change. So to go from 1 bedroom to 2 bedrooms, we'd have to take 1.5 1-bedrooms to 2 bedrooms to make a 2 bedroom, something along that lines, right? It doesn't take a full 2 1-bedrooms to make a 2 bedroom, but it takes about 1.5, something like that. So we'd be taking, if we did a stack, we'd be taking out, and you can't have half a 1-bedroom without introducing bachelors. So if we're not going to do bachelors, that would mean you'd be taking 3 1-bedrooms for 3 floors, so that's 9, and converting it into two bedrooms, so that's 6. So we'd be dropping the unit count down by taking out 9, adding 6. So we'd be dropping the unit count by 3. And on top of that, the price per square footage is less for a 2-bedroom than it is for a 1-bedroom. So it's like trying to make the finances of this work. It certainly isn't in regard. I'll leave it to you guys whether you feel it's in Parksville's favor. It's certainly not in Bruce's favor to make that conversion, because it makes it a lot more difficult to get the finances to work for it.
Thank you.
As a
Follow-up?
Thank you for that, Kevin. And I understand that it's not a game changer for me. It's just a suggestion. If it doesn't work market wise, then there'd be no sense for you to go ahead with the building at all. So I appreciate that. The only other question I had was more utilitarian. Your services coming to the front of the building off of MacArthur, anyways, on your renderings, of course, it doesn't show any access for your mass, your electrical supplies and so forth. Are you planning on coming underground into the building on that, Kevin? Or are you coming off of existing utility poles outside? And the reason I'm asking for this is right on the corner of that laneway where you are, there's utility poles out there. And there's actually one in the middle of the street there, not in the middle of the street, but actually in the street and not on the sidewalk. I was wondering if that's going to be actually changed by this development, if you were to go underground, or what's the proposal on that, sir?
That's a darn good question. This project's been going on for so many years. I don't recall the answer to it, is my honest truth. We have had a civil engineer look at this. Bruce, do you recall if we were going underground, if we were changing that pole at all? It's just not. I'm not recollecting our early discussions on this. And Bruce, I don't know if you recall or not.
Well, I have the. Hello, Council. I'm Bruce McClay here. I have a set of plans here, and I was thinking maybe we could go drop from the pole and then go underground into the electrical room through one of the amenity suites. If we can possibly do that, it'll make a better looking building. I agree. So we'll do the best we can to make it work, and I'm sure we can. We'll have to deal with hydro and let me just look at the plans for a second. I'll just see where the electrical room is.
I'm just looking at it from the point of you're going to increase the traffic in that area considerably with your tenants, and it's somewhat of a hazard right there. So I'm just suggesting that just trying to prevent an accident from happening is all I'm getting.
Yeah.
Right at your new development.
The existing pool.
If
Yeah,
you could
well-
just look into it. I don't need an answer right now, Mr. McClay, that's fine. It just, if you look into it, it was just concern when I walked the site anyways, just to have a look at it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll get onto it right away. I'm meeting my electrician up here tomorrow, and I'll get him to come over and look at it with me. And he'll discuss it with hydro, and we'll talk to our engineer as well. I'm sure we can come to some kind of a compromise that'll make everybody happy, and including myself and the building. So I'll do the best I can, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Hello, Mr. McClay. Very nice to see you again. I just wanted to know if you clarify for me, did you say this is no longer just for seniors? It's going to be for everybody, all ages? Am I correct?
We pretty well, I like to have it as all ages. I understand there's a big complex up the end of the street there. I think there'll be a lot of young people like nurses and doctors. And I think there's going to be quite a shortage of housing. And every unit will be like the 1-bedrooms are not going to be, they're going to be a nice size, and they will take a man and a wife. But I can see your point about having children too. So I would look into that as well. So anyways, I'm just trying to.
Oh, okay, thank you so much, because that was my point, I guess. And by the way, I want to say it is a beautiful building. It is a lovely building. Can you
Oh,
hear me?
thank you.
Yes. But, you know, one of the things that I've heard from the business community when I was a liaison on that committee is that they are looking for housing for their workers, their young workers, young lower income workers are really struggling, those in the service industries and some of those people who have children that they want to bring here to work. So it's kind of important to me, anyway, that we can answer that need, and you're in such an ideal location to have, you know, more than one bedrooms in there. I understand the jigging around you have to do with that apartment to make it work, to put all the units, and I do get that. But then, of course, maybe there are other ways, like making bachelors and 2 bedrooms or studios bedrooms rather than one if you need to borrow space, but not telling you how to design, just trying to find a way that we could perhaps get what we need as well in Parksville. I understand that you have a need, you have costs, but we also have wishes and dreams for our people here, and to bring those young families, working families here, and young singles, and others as well that might need that. So those are just my comments on that. It would be very, very nice if you could accommodate more than the 1 bedrooms. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Greer.
Well, I've been dealing with Lori, who she runs these affordable housing, about 4 buildings, and she tells me she doesn't take any more calls anymore because she's just booked solid. But she was telling me there's been 2 buildings built in Qualicum, one all 2 bedrooms, and a lot of 1 bedroom. She says they can't rent the 2 bedrooms, and she wrote me a letter which I could send to Parksville, and I don't want to build a bunch of 2 bedrooms I can't rent. So I've got this paper in my hand right now that I could, you know, show. And I gave Kevin one too, that it tells us, you know, these 2 bedrooms in Qualicum just are not renting. They're going to get no interest at all in them. So it kind of scares me a little bit to build a bunch of them. And so I thought I'd stay with the 1 bedrooms and make it affordable. I've got to be able to pay the mortgage payment too. So I'm trying to, it's a big challenge now. The cost of building is going up. And, you know, and I hate to just say, I'll pull it off the market and wait for a year or so, but I don't want to do that either. I've got a real good building crew right now. I'm building a building in Parksville, and they're doing a beautiful job. And you're welcome to come and have a look at the building. And I've never built a building so nice as this one. And I want to do another one on MacArthur Street, and I want to be proud of it. So I'm kind of in a catch-22 position here. I want to build it. I've got a crew ready to go, and so.
I'm going to throw out a suggestion, but I don't want to commit Bruce to it. So I'm going to say it's for consideration if the council would agree as well, because Bruce and I have not talked to this, but when we were doing more of a seniors orientated thing, we put a common room on every floor. And if this is no longer dedicated to seniors, maybe we could reconsider doing the common room on either on every floor. And if we were to not do a common room, that would open up the possibility of adding 3 more 2 bedrooms by not having that common room. And I think that given that the sort of emphasis on who this is for has changed, the intent of it being positive for Parksville hasn't changed, but how we achieve that is changing a little bit. I think that might warrant some consideration.
Thank you for that. Councillor Greer.
Yeah, I would go along with that.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through to Bill and Bruce, or Kevin and Bruce. I really like the development that you've shown us. And I agree, I have no trouble with the number of one-bedroom apartments. I live on Morrison Street, and we have 26 units. Only a few of them, 3 or 4 of them are two-bedroom, because everyone living there are retired, and some are singles, single retired people, and about half of them have lost their license. So the need for one-bedroom places downtown for seniors is very important. And I have no trouble with the number of one-bedroom apartments. The other aspect is I agree with you that 2 bedrooms in the middle of the downtown is not very viable for families. You won't find too many families, but you will find seniors of a certain age that want to live right down in the middle of the town because they might be have no license to travel, so they have to be able to walk. And also for the workforce, for young people to be able to get jobs and work downtown, and some of them maybe not have cars either. So it's designed mostly for young single working people, and certainly older people who have to be down in the middle of the town in order to survive. So I like the project. I have no problems with the number of one-bedroom units. I think you're doing an excellent job, and I'd hate to see us hold you up for any particular reason, because I know when you're held up, it costs thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in time. So I'm certainly supportive of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Councillor
thank you.
Chan.
Thank you through your worship too. And thank you so much, Bruce and Kevin, for your time today. And coming in front of us is really great. It's great to have that dialogue and have some questions answered. I'm in full support of this in its current capacity, but I really like the idea that if you're going to look at those common room changes, that you could maybe add a couple of 2 bedrooms. That's great. I would support it, right now in its current form. I think, being a person that lived downtown in larger towns, I've never lived in a smaller city downtown, but typically I would, from where I was before, it was a lot of single working people. It was, there wasn't a ton of couples, but there was coupled up folks, and you didn't see very many kids in any of these locations. So I think you're right you hit the nail on the head with what you're planning there. And I also think it's just fantastic that this project's going forward, because it's a beautiful place. It's certainly going to add to our downtown. We need to revitalize our downtown and make it look better down there. And we need to get more people down there. So I really applaud what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor
Thank you.
Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Bruce and Kevin. For someone who owns a business like a block or so away from your proposed development, I'm really looking forward to it. I would be a potential person to be in one of the 2-bedroom units due to having a business downtown and needing an office space or space for visitors and everything that come to me. What I wanted to ask was that you also have 2 commercial units that are proposed for this site, and have you had interest on what those could look like?
Well, I've got the commercial space because we have to put it in, but I think it would be quite nice I figured if we needed to put somebody wanted very reasonable rent, and they could make sort of a deli soup kitchen type of thing to help the people upstairs. And, they come down for a little breakfast or a bowl of porridge or some, toasted coffee would be nice.
Well, I don't think I would like that, but
No, but I mean, that's, I don't know what it would do. It's going to be nice to see some proper retail down that street instead of, and I've always been on a lot of the panels here where they've asked us to come to the panels, and I was always against, I shouldn't say against, but converting all houses into businesses rather than doing proper commercial stores. But, that's just my idea. I don't say I'm right or wrong, but anyways, I think the downtown could be a beautiful downtown. And I've always loved Parksville. I built a lot of buildings in Parksville. And, but and Parksville is going to be good to me, and I want to give back a little bit. And I figured this building could do it. And if we get a real good tenant in there, I'd be very happy. But
You mentioned that you also had just completed another building in Parksville. What building is that?
well, that's the Ocean Terrace that burnt down 2 years ago, or
Okay,
3 years ago.
so that's good to know, so that we can
Yeah,
not
that's right.
exactly compare, but to see what you do. So thank you.
That's right across from the beach club. It's a new building. We're just building. It's 38 suites, and it's all going to be rental too. It's so we're just in the drywall stage now, and we should have it finished in about 2 months. And I'm really quite pleased with it. I come up every week to make sure it's done, and the quality is so good. I just can't believe it. It's just got a very good crew working on it. But and this building on McCarter Street will be just as good. I got to have the same crews going, and they're all excited because they don't have any work starting to slow down a little bit for them, he said. So anyways, but I'm quite happy with the way everything's going, and I'm quite happy with the planning department in Parksville as well. And
Thank you, Bruce. Just because we're going to have to move on here in a second, but just a couple notes from myself. First off is, since I'm going to be living about 2 blocks away from yours, we're practically going to be neighbors in this, so I'm looking forward to it. I really like your development. You've done an excellent job, as you did down on the Island Highway with the replacement building you just put in. And if you commit to looking at the compromise of perhaps converting some of those those rooms on each of the floors, then I certainly will probably be looking at supporting you when it comes up later in the agenda. And I have one more question coming from Councillor Wilson, and it's going to be short, but here we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, and Kevin, I was just going to say, I really like your idea of using that amenity space. If you can do that, I think it would just be, for me, it would be the answer. I would be very happy with that. As the mayor said, if you could do something along that line, I think that would really answer that need, especially, when you think about what Councillor Patterson said, there are people who do want that extra room for an office, or they might have a child or whatever. So it is kind of a nice mix. And I understand, Bruce, that you say that Qualicum, they can't rent the 1-bedrooms, but we have a glut of 1-bedrooms here. I've counted them all out.
no, they can't rent the 2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms, I should say.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I mean 2 bedrooms, but we do have, I know that I've had letters from couples that live over further on Molliet, and they have children, and they are looking for that sort of thing. So I think that times have changed a bit. I understand where Councillor Greer's coming from, but young people do want to live right in the center. And I think that in revitalizing our downtown, that is very much a part of it. So I'd be thrilled if you could work your magic, Kevin, and put some 2 bedrooms into those spaces that, and if you're going to build a lovely little coffee shop down below, Bruce, those people don't need the amenity space. They're going to be going down there for coffee and gabbing away down there with all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So anyway, I look forward to seeing what you can do with your magic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and coming to us with your presentation. As I mentioned, it will be coming up a little bit later in our agenda, your project. So we'll go from there. Thank you again, and we look forward to talking to you in the very near future. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. And now we're on to our final delegation. And that's for 360 364 and 368 Molliette Street. Okay, there we go. Oh, we got a whole boardroom there. Your room looks very comfortable. All right. Please. Please go forward. Thank you. We'll give you about as much time as you need here for the discussion, then we'll ask some questions. How's that? Can they hear us?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
We can now, yep.
Okay. We were a little unsure how this was going to work. New technology.
All right, it's amazing what this stuff does for you.
It is indeed. All
right, please go forward.
Okay, first is all entire team here for present, Daryoush, myself, and Sue is here. I do have a very quick overall of the project information, and I would like to basically share these 10 minutes with all parties to make sure we have all the information. The project is basically have to meet a step 4 code, which is 30 to 50% better than what we see building code energy.
Hold on for just a second. We're having a problem. We can hear you. We know you're talking, but we're not getting the volume here to understand what's being said. So just bear with us until we make an adjustment.
Okay.
It's not, okay. Yeah, whoever's talking is going to, you're probably right, Doug. Whoever's talking is going to need to be closer to the microphone, which is on the board, okay? If you don't mind, just play a little bit of, what's that game called? Musical chairs.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
That's good. I tried to be a little bit slow as well. Maybe that's what needs to be done. So the project will meet the step 4 code, which is 30 to 50% better than BC building code energy model. All other building at the basically BC meeting. We also going bring the CMHC co-fund program. What effect on that program is we have to either go 20% accessible unit or 100% universal. We're choosing to go 100% universal, means any of the units can change to the accessible unit. But still we're gonna have a 5% of them built to accessible, doesn't need to change after, but it means we will do it after. We also send it the PowerPoint. I'm not sure if that's available. Okay, yeah, there you go. So we previously in original DP we had the 6 townhouses. Sorry, this is from original DP. The recent design actually submit is had 2 extra townhouses. I also wanted to go summarize because I did have some error on number of the units in the drawing. We have 16 2-bedroom. We have 6 1-bedroom, and then if we go to the next one more, please. This one, yeah. As you see, the behind the stairs, there is a den, 1-bedroom den. I did not put it on the, the data sheet. And we have a 57 1-bedroom units. These are around 600 square feet, 1-bedroom, and then around 700, and 2-bedroom, 730. Amount of the comparing the 1-bedroom to rest of the development, we have 35% of the 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 1-bedroom, and then compare to 1-bedroom. If we take that 6 1-bedroom, and then out, that will be 30%. If you go to the next, please. So this property is all already subdivision submitted to the city of Parksville. This is going to be one single property. So with the two buildings and potential third building in the at the site. So it's just one single property, as you see, as it is. And also we provide 129 parking stalls for 87 units. This means approximately 1.5, almost twice as high as any of the Nanaimo affordable housing done inside. So we did it because we want to match with the original design and make it sure basically we do not need to go to addendum to the project DP, but obviously didn't go that route. And one thing also, one of the greatest things this site did, provide the green belt between the single family in the north and this development. This done during the rezoning, and it's huge benefit to all parties. If you go to the next slide, please. So the question was the empty land. Basically, because we have additional density, what we suggested, in future, we can add more building to this development. Obviously, that green belt is not buildable, but you will see there is a good group of the trees by the highway where we are proposing for future. Obviously, that if we go through, we need to come back and do the DP and go off. But for the moment, we are keeping those trees, unlike the other side of the highway, it take all the trees, we're keeping these trees to give the privacy for when this develops for the tenants until next development, if they required by society. One more thing is in the drawing, we have a preliminary note. That means this is not for construction. We put in all the drawings for DP. Nobody can go and start build anything until have a DP or building permit. So that's a very summary of the what we have. And I would like Andrew, maybe you can talk about it. So we may go back to the second slide where they are the. Do you want to, Dash?
Sure. We can go back to rental structure, rate structure. There was many questions before. Maybe it's the third slide.
It is third slide.
Okay, are you finished with your presentation?
I was wondering if you would like to review some of the rental questions that you had previous, and that would be on the third slide.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Wonderful. And again, thank you, Mayor Main and Council for meeting with us. This is really appreciated. So there was many questions passed on some of the very complicated funding formulas and how the rental rate works. So we hope that this is helpful in illustrating how some of the rents are prescribed. So the monthly rental rates for the building, so the deep subsidy, which is 20% of all the units, outlined here. So these are prescribed rates. These are not negotiable. These are prescribed. So 1 bedroom at a deep subsidy rate is $375 a month. 2 bedrooms is $570, and 3 bedrooms would be $660. So those are prescribed rates, and I have no idea when those would change, but that would be changed by the province. The rent geared to income, this is where it gets complicated. And just to review, all residents that live in this housing complex will have annual rent reviews. So every unit, every family, every year. And so we would take rent geared to income of 50% of the units. to 43 units. These are averages. So it will depend on when you bring in your income information every year, and it will get calculated. And what the difference between the average rate, say for a 1-bedroom at 604, just average based on your rental, your income. So you bring in your T4s, you bring in support, the whole list of things that you can bring in, and we would review all of those pieces. So you can see the average rates right here. So 3-bedroom average rate would be 901. And the low end of market would be the balance of the 30%, approximately 26 units. So to a maximum, 30% of gross household income. So as you can see, you'll see up to $113,040 is what's called the Hills rate. And that's a maximum at this point based on that date. And those are set by the province, what those are in our area. So again, these are complicated or in this area. Thank you. And so as you can see, if someone made more than that, we wouldn't be able to house them in this complex. So simple as that. Any questions? I know it's complicated. Does anybody have questions about that?
Do we have any questions on the rental structure? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. Not so much the questions other than the fact that just the attachment that you provided has been very helpful anyways, describing the difference in between the deep subsidy rental rates and the rates RG, you call it rental geared to income. That was very helpful to see those numbers, and it actually shows how many units are being proposed anyways. That took care of all the questions I have. Thank you very much. A great job.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Chandler? Councillor Wilson?
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you coming in today to kind of clarify some of the stuff. I know there was a little confusion as to some of the variances and things that had been changed, and obviously that's something that you felt was useful to do. I think in this case, just trying to understand what exactly happens at the end, with the rental, that's the biggest thing here. I don't think we need to try to dictate what you're doing inside the building. What I like to see is that this is going to be something that's really good for the community, and we really don't have any real true affordable housing in a sense, because it's just market rate affordable housing. So when you look at those numbers, that's really something that's going to work for a lot of people. I mean, to be able to be in a 3-bedroom, a family with $900 potentially as a potential rate is unreal. That's so affordable for people. And considering the way COVID has kind of stripped people of their income, and in some cases, people that were making 60, 80,000 a year are now lucky if they're making 30 on subsidized unemployment or some of the other things that are going on. This has probably never been needed like it is today. So I appreciate everything you're doing going forward, and I fully support everything that's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I guess probably I'll ask you, Andrea, if you could clarify for me, where are the family units? Pardon me, how many? And you were going to answer the question before, after your July 27th presentation, we asked about children in the apartments, and you were going to get back to us on that. So can you tell us what the units, who the units are going to house, the sort of age brackets, et cetera, and then I'll ask you another question. Thank you.
Sure. And we did listen to what your community needs were, and how it will work is anyone who fits the criteria in any age bracket is eligible to live here. There is no age restriction, and the way the building is designed as a universal, with universal design, people can age in place, can be couples, families, children, and it will really be dependent. I mean, there may end up being 60 or 70% of these is families. So any of these units can be family units, period.
Follow up?
Okay, so that's really good news, because that was a real sticking point for me. So we know that Now, then, of course, we're going to go back to, they're still limited in your 2 bedrooms. You still got a lot of one, and you have put the dens back in, but it would be nice to see more 2 bedrooms at least.
Well, and, I guess getting back, we spent an inordinate amount of time finagling to see how we can make it financially work. And I think some of your prior delegations actually outlined it. It's a matter of dollar and cents. So we've got to be able to manage the mortgage with the number of units, the size of the units, the amount of people that will live there. It's a maintenance perspective. It's a cost of construction. And this, I can't speak to how many days or hours were spent on budgeting and how we're going to make it all work at the end of the day. And this is where we came to. The reality is, in this particular, in this project, we could have, depending on who applies, there could be 80% of these units filled with families. And actually, I'm going to ask Kenny Lally to speak to that specifically, as he's had 25 years of experience with dealing in family complexes, if you don't mind, Kenny.
The music stopped and changed.
For a moment.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that I've been involved in affordable housing projects for a couple of decades or more. And the vast majority of the projects I've worked on are actually family projects, dedicated only to family. And when you go through a family project through BC Housing, most societies view the 1 bedrooms as the most versatile unit that they have and the highest demand. And most projects typically have about 60 to 70% of their units are 1 bedroom units. And those are family units and in family projects. Well, who that really caters to often is a single mom or a single dad who has a young child who's maybe part-time or full-time living with them. I think there's a misconception sometimes that the bedrooms equate to the number of tenants in there. It's very often that a 1 bedroom will have 2 or 3 people in there, just as there is likely to have 3 or 4 people in a 2 bedroom. Not all tenants, not all people in that in those units actually may necessarily have a bedroom, but that's the reality of the situation, both for the non-market and the market providers. So we find that the 1 bedrooms are very versatile. They come with a lower cost rent, and for a lot of single moms or dads, they can use that little extra money to go to just childcare or sports events or whatever they do. So they actually prefer those unit types as opposed to a 2 bedroom. So when we look at these things, we have to look at the versatility of the project and the viability. If we stack it with 2 bedrooms and we can't rent them out, that falls on the society. It doesn't fall on BC Housing or anybody else. So it really jeopardizes their position. And it's why that BC Housing and CMHC never dictate the type of units in a project, because they know it's ultimately the society's responsibility to run the project responsibly.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you everyone for meeting with us. We do appreciate it. So I have a couple questions and comments on that. This site enters into an agreement for the next 60 years, and a lot happens in 60 years, and our demographics are definitely going to be changing in the next 10 to 15 years. We know that. We know that our demographics here in Parksville are changing, and we're lowering the age of the average resident and everything in the community. So I am very, very concerned because when I look at the form and the character of this property, and I look at the green space and the lack of balconies that are there. And I just think of COVID and how so many people have been cooped up in their residences and have not left their residence, in some people in months and that. And so to see this type of building being built without balconies, without excess green space, and without thought and care for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years moving forward is a little bit concerning to me. So those are some of my comments. You're more than welcome to speak to them if you'd like. Thank you.
I will respond to that one. This property actually overall 4 acres, 2.7 acres of this property is buildable, 1.3 acre is green space, which is not owned by city, is owned by property owner, and we cannot build any building, but I think it's the best that this is the greatest asset for the people living in here. They have their own private almost park, 1.3 acre of the land. I think that can be a really good programized to use for these people.
Okay, let's go. Last question, then we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there are a few things that I am just going to say something to Daryoush that I think it was Denny, that I think BC housing requires that you have to have a bedroom when you have a child, but that's just something I thought I read. There are a couple of things though that are concerning me, and it has to do with our DPA guidelines, DPA 4 guidelines. And so there are a few things that I've numbered here that I really do feel that this project warrants a review by the ADP. And I'd like to add in there specifically a general review, but a review of 1F, 1I, 2F, 4B, 4D, and 4F, if we could. So I guess, should I make a motion? Your
No, I
Worship,
think
or
we're
do
going to
you-
discuss this later
All
on
right,
in the
all right,
meeting,
thank you.
not here with the delegation. So, any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate the input that you've provided us, and you've given us a lot of information on the rentals and the rates and things. So thanks again for your time. And yes, I see a hand.
May I speak to a child requiring a bedroom?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. There was guidelines around that many years ago. They were there. We have no such guidelines. So long as both tenant and society is in agreement, we now have, as we speak, single parents with part-time children that don't have a bedroom specific to them. They have 1 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms and den. Quite common, actually. We have a few of them. And they're often part-time children, or even if they're young children that don't have a specific bedroom. So that's quite common, and there is no such guideline. The only guideline, especially around the den, is that it be sprinkled. So that's at least in Nanaimo City. I can't speak to Parksville, but that's the guideline that we would adhere to.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Again, thank you very much for your time, and we'll get back to you on this very shortly, I'm sure. And moving right along, we have 3 pieces of correspondence on our agenda, and I'll put my glasses on. First one is from the Regional District of Nanaimo regarding the regional growth strategy, and that is for the airport lands, if I'm not mistaken, and it was included in your package. I need a recommendation of the correspondence from the region, the District of Nanaimo dated February 3rd regarding be received. Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Greer. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Next piece is a Regional District of Nanaimo, the Northern Community Sewer Local Service Amendment Bylaw number 889.75. I need a mover and a seconder. First off, to be received. Councillor O'Brien, second by Councillor Wilson. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. And for point number 2, I need mover, Counselor Greer, seconded by Counselor Chandler. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Last correspondent is from Telus, Universal Broadband Fund application. They're asking for our support, so I need a mover and a seconder to be received. First off, Counselor Wilson, second by Counselor O'Brien. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Secondly, the council for the city of Parksville will provide a letter of support for TELUS to provide increased wireless connectivity under the Universal Broadband Fund. So they're applying for funding for this. All those, I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Chandler. Discussion? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. My only question is when is describing on the background information on page 37 for the increased wireless connectivity, I would just need clarification to define what the building of infrastructure includes. Does staff have any further information? They're asking us to give them permission to increase the connectivity, but are they going to get by that by increasing the infrastructure? Are we talking towers? Are we talking just changing to fiber optic lines? Or I'm just not sure what granting them approval for the infrastructure actually means.
Good question. Although I don't think they're asking us to grant approval on the infrastructure. They're merely asking us to support for their application for future funding or for the funding of it. We would still have our normal approvals for any projects that come through. So other than that, I don't know what else to say.
Thank you, Your Worship. I now found the page here, page 37 of our package anyways. Says this Universal Broadband Fund for funding to connect your communities to the TELUS wireless network. This would include the building, operation, and long-term maintenance of infrastructure. So it's the definition of infrastructure. It's talking about building some infrastructure. I just would like to know what that looks like.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to our CAO. Does this open up any challenges for any other service provider? Or would we be setting a standard by approving TELUS and then having Bell or any of the other Rogers and all those other service providers coming forward? I'm not a technical person, so I just needed some clarity.
Go ahead.
If I may, Your Worship, I don't think it creates any concerns because all of those folks would be able to come and ask for the same thing. This is the only information that we were provided, and they just asked that this be sent to council for consideration. It really is just asking for the support that be enhanced, or the wireless connectivity be enhanced in the community. It would not give them any sort of pre-approval for infrastructure development. They'd still have to go through those processes, but if council is more comfortable, I guess there's two options. We can either say that we're not comfortable supporting it right now until we get more information and invite them to offer more information, or we could clarify the resolution that it's limited to their application for grant funding only and does not provide any sort of approval in principle for any construction or expansion of the works.
Until defined?
Until they apply.
Until
yeah.
defined.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, would that appease you, Councillor O'Brien? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, to the CAO. Yes, any approval would have to say we are contacted prior to any building or infrastructure or installation of equipment as to what that would look like. That would be fine. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm okay with that, although I still believe that they still have to come back to us for no matter what it is. But I understand your concern, and let's live with that.
If I may, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Chandler moved that second item. So if they agree, we can do a friendly amendment to add that clarification.
I got a nod from both. So it's a friendly So let's take a vote on the friendly amended motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Consideration of the next item was deferred from the February, so here we go on the deferrals from the last meeting. First one is on 160 McCarter. The motion is on the floor again, so discussion on 160 McCarter? No? Let me just call the vote. Councillor Wilson, you hesitantly put your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'm sorry about coughing here. This
That's all right.
mask makes me dry. I guess I really like the idea that Kevin is thinking about reworking those spaces. And I like the building and everything else, but I guess, if we're going to call a vote and go for this, it would be nice if we could have maybe some sort of guarantee from them that they're going to do their best to work on that space. I'm not sure whether this is possible or not, but not that I want to hold their feet to the fire, but I kind of do want to hold their feet to the fire, that we can get a little bit more for our needs met in this. So if anybody has any other suggestions how we could do this, I definitely think it's a great project, and I'm not trying to nix it. I'd like everybody to have a win-win on this.
Councillor Greer and Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I like this project, and I don't think we should delay it any longer. Delay just means extra money, as I mentioned earlier. Could be thousands, could be 100,000. So I think we should go ahead with it. We can't pick this thing any longer, and I think we should approve it. Thanks.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards with the report that's forward in today's package, there is actually 3 separate recommendations. And recommendation 3, if we wanted to, we could separate them out. But I think with the Councillor Wilson and that the 3rd clause is that council defer consideration of the issuance of the development permit until final consideration of the above development variance permits are met. So we can continue moving this along, or we could change the 3rd point as well, if that was what she'd like to consider, and
Okay.
that too. So
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not in favor of deferring any further at this particular point. And to Councillor Wilson's request about the suggestion of converting the common rooms possibly into 2-bedroom suites, I believe firmly that we presented our case to the developer, and I think he gave his agreement that he would look into the possibilities of doing that. But I would also think that he would be in a better position to see if by doing that and then turning those into rental units, 2 bedrooms, and getting some income that way, I think he would look at that as he has agreed to, and that's good enough for me. I don't think we need to defer to any letter more to get a letter or guarantee that he's going to do that. I would support this as it stands. Thank you.
I thought, did I only move item 1, or did we only move item 1? Mhm. Okay, all right, so thank you. You're right, we did do that. So we're only on item 1 at this point in time. So Councillor Chandler, so far the conversation is stuck with item 1 anyway, so.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just a comment that I think, I like the project in its format that it is. If they, we have to look to these developers to know what the proper mix is and how it's going to work for them financially and so on. But this building is needed downtown. We need more inventory for apartments. I think that the idea of maybe being able to do the common room thing would be great, but I don't agree in deferring or, just using the term holding someone's feet to the fire. I know you don't mean that. It's just in reality, why are we going to do that? We just, we need to make sure these developers are aware of our concerns, but I think that's where we leave it and give them our comments. And at that point, have them make the best decisions they can for them and for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I trust this developer immensely. He's built many, many buildings around this community and has always done a fine job of doing it. The last example is he brought up was the replacement of the building on the Old Island Highway. I would approve it anyways. It's to his benefit if he does in fact convert some of those amenity rooms into a room that would make more revenue. I mean, if you think about it, he's not getting anything for the amenity room, but he would get a bigger rent for the rooms that are being expanded, or for the places that are being expanded to. It all points that way. I'm going to support this wholeheartedly. So I think it's time to do it and move on. It'd be nice to get that street going like Weld Street has been going, and then we got two really nice streets running parallel to each other. So any other comments? If not, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we go to number 2. I may need a little help on that one. That subject to clause 3 adopted by council on November the 7th, 1994. I have no idea what clause 3 is, but under amending resolution be stricken from the amendment development permit number 90-11. Blaine, can you just give us I'm sorry, will the director of planning please just give us a little very short explanation as to what we're doing here?
Certainly. So there's parking that another property has that's sort of attached to this property, and a parking obligation is attached to the subject property. They're proposing to pay cash in lieu, like payment in lieu of that parking. But the other properties has this encumbrance on it that needs to be removed.
Who has the encumbrance?
The other property has a condition on their title under that resolution that they have parking on the subject property. And what's proposed is that cash is swapping out for that encumbrance. They're putting money into the city's parking fund.
I got you. I understand what you're saying. All right, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Greer, second by Councilor Chandler. Are there any discussions on this? Are those the parking spots? Just curious, Director, are they the parking spots that run along the laneway?
That's a portion of them.
Is that where the telephone pole that Councilor O'Brien was speaking to? No? Yeah, oh, but it's in line with those ones. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
I got you. All right. It's easy to figure this out, isn't it? All right. If there's no other conversation, I'll call the question. All those in favor of item 2, it's carried. And we don't need number 3, do we? Defer consideration of the issuance of the development permit. Okay, I need somebody to move on this one then. Move Councilor O'Brien, seconded by Councilor Chandler. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. Moving right along. Next item are also deferred from the 17th meeting. Council heard the proponents earlier in this meeting. Is there any background required from Mr. Russell before we go forward? All right. So I need somebody, this is already on the floor. So, and it was moved in. Okay, item 1. Are we going to break it down into 2? Does anybody want it broken into 2 parts, or do you want it broken and leave it together? All right, so, all right, we'll go together then, so I'm not getting any knowledge of otherwise. So I need a mover and a seconder for items 1 and 2. Count. Okay, now you've confused me. Sorry. All right, we're on the floor. Let's have the conversation. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I want to refer this to the ADP, is this the time I do it, or are we still back here?
Go ahead.
If I may, Your Worship, as soon as a motion is made to defer, then no more debate occurs. So if you wanted to defer it to the ADP or defer it to another day or defer it for some more information, then you wouldn't be able to talk about it anymore at the council.
So I would like to defer this or refer it to the ADP.
Difference there, defer or refer?
Yeah,
Okay,
well, yes.
No, I know, unfortunately, I know that.
And I don't know whether you want me to specifically.
No, all you gotta do is say you want it deferred, and
Yeah.
you need a seconder. All right, we have a vote on this then, on deferral. All those in favor of deferring? Opposed? It's defeated. All right, so we're back to the beginning then. We need a mover and a seconder. No, we need to have a conversation. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I definitely, I feel this is a great project. I think that a lot of our concerns, I think were listened to here today. And I hope that, there might be some tweaks and adjustments here in the proposal and some of the things that they're working towards. But I think it was pretty clear that, to make this project work, it's a financial kind of a seesaw with the way that everything has to fit into place and the construction costs and all these different things. So I think it's a great thing for our community. I think the overall program here is something that we've really needed in Parksville for a long, long time. This is the first real true affordable housing program. So I'm excited, and I think it'll also really help a lot of, all age groups, and I'm very happy to hear that. And I think I would fully support whatever goes forward in this program. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm looking forward to this proposal as well. One of the reasons is the location. The location is very close to schools already existing and very close to a shopping center right there. So it actually could help with the limiting the amount of traffic anyways in our streets and the commute and so forth. And I also like the fact that upon reading the further background information is that there's a 60-year covenant put on this property to make it so it's going to be affordable for 60 years, which is just a great covenant to have anyways, because it can be converted anybody else's whim. So I think it's great that we'll be able to secure affordable housing in Parksville, a block of it for 60 years, which is, I think, would be a great achievement here. And I think that I'm really looking forward to this happening. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that's fine if it's not going to go to the ADP. I just would like to make mention of a few things that I noticed that really would be nice to be addressed. 1F, building entrances. This is for our DPA guideline 4. Building entrances should be designed to provide weather protection. There isn't anything on there. So if the developer may have just not realized it, but it might be something that they would consider. The mechanical equipment and venting is supposed to be incorporated into the building. So just as another note, not sure about the pedestrian routes to and from accessed by landscaping, but that's not so important to me, is that they are to incorporate barrier-free universal design principles, which I know Daryoush is certainly aware of that because of the type of build they have, but I just wanted to make note of 4F, which is the locate and design curb letdowns to accommodate wheelchair scooter movement. It may be on those drawings that they have, They're very small. I couldn't see it, but I did notice on the rendering 8.4.3 that the curbs were not, had no letdown, and that's why it's those sort of features that maybe just went unnoticed that I thought I would make mention of. So those are my main reasons to go to the ADP. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Your Worship. As to Councillor Wilson's suggestions, I'm wondering, without delaying this any further at this particular point, is it something that those questions could be actually looked at by, this is a question of the CAO, sorry, that the concerns as raised by Councillor Wilson could actually just be handled by referring this to Blaine or our Director of Planning, anyways, just for further question as to if all conditions were actually met on the first, when he went through his checklist, as just a possible to, if anything had been missed. Could we just refer this to Mr. Russell, without delaying any of the process, just as a courtesy?
I'll let you take it.
If I may, Your Worship, sorry, just to clarify, Councillor Bryan, are you saying that you want Director of Planning to speak to them right now? Because there were a couple, I know that the applicant mentioned that it is a universal design. And so I think with the building code and their knowledge of that would be addressed. And certainly if council passes the motion tonight, I believe the applicants are probably still watching, but some of that stuff we can certainly work with them for the final approval, because it wouldn't be changing their plans or affecting the terms of permit or anything that's attached. So I think the points will be already kind of in their mind frame.
Thank you. That answers the question. That would be suitable. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments. And just a quick couple from myself. First off, I hope the Lions Club isn't offended, because they have a number of geared to income buildings around town. So we do recognize this isn't the first one in Parksville. There is a number of them that are there. I'm totally in favor with this. I'm so excited about the rents that are being talked about in here, that it will give an opportunity for young families, people with disabilities, low income families. There's so many variations to this. Could it be bigger? I'd love it to be bigger so that we could take on more residents here. But this is a good start. This is something that we all came to sit in these chairs about when we started this journey 2 and a bit years ago. So I'm really excited that we're finally getting somewhere on this building. So I'm totally in favor of it. And if there's no other comments, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? For opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, folks. Reports. We heard from the delegation regarding the affordable housing agreement. Mr. Russell, is there anything further that you'd like to add for the affordable housing agreement?
If I may, Your Worship, I just want to confirm that the dollar amount in the city's affordable housing is the maximum. People can have lower rates than that. It's just a cap on the maximum that can be charged. The Nanaimo Affordable Housing Society is proposing a number of rental rates well below that maximum amount.
Thank you. Let's put the motion on the floor first. So I need somebody to make this motion to begin with. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Greer. Discussion. Councillor Wilson. Well, wait a minute. I got to give Councillor Patterson first go. It's hers. Please. Oh, it's okay. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I just ask, it's to our Director of Planning. I'm a little bit confused. The development permit is with Kellen Foods, not with Nanaimo Housing. I guess I'm just trying to understand, because there's something later. Yeah, maybe you could explain that. Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Wilson. So the land currently is owned by Kellen Foods. The development permit is issued, is basically runs with the land. So when the permit's issued, it's issued to the current landowner. In the case of this housing agreement, we're of the understanding And in fact, the agreement's written in such a way that the Nanaimo Affordable Housing Society has an option on the property. So the housing agreement is between the city and Nanaimo Affordable Housing Society based on their option to purchase the property.
Go ahead.
Oh, this might be a question later on with the affordable housing agreement. Maybe it is actually. I think I read somewhere that BC Housing has the option to purchase in the Covenant 219, but maybe that's later on, perhaps, when that question might come up. It's in the BC Housing RFP that they have the option to purchase. So I'm just not sure. It's probably not on this particular document.
Is that aimed at anybody, or is that just a comment?
It was sort of aimed at Mr. Russell, but
well, Marilyn, if I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Wilson, the ownership of the property could change. So if BC Housing took ownership of the property, that agreement is still in effect for the term of the agreement. So we've had that in other places where property is sold and there was a housing agreement in place. That agreement is for the duration. So for the 15 years, once it's enacted, it would be for those 15 years, regardless of who owns the property at that time.
Runs with the title.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? And I shall call the question if there is none. For points 1 and 2, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Bylaws. We need the Housing Agreement Authorization Bylaw 2021, number 1568. Housing Agreement Authorization for 380, 364, and 368 Molliette Street South and 371, 383, and 389 Alberni Highway. I need a mover and a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Councillor Chandler, Councillor O'Brien. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2020, number 20.129. Text amendment, the Comprehensive Development CD-19A for 115 McMillan Street South conditions. I need a mover and a seconder for the Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Parks and Open Spaces, we have no recommendations for consideration at this time. Anything you want to pass on?
Nothing at this time, Your Worship. The Parks and Open Spaces Committee actually meets every 2 months, so we haven't had a meeting since we had our last report. So nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As a notice of motions, Councillor Fraz has put on a notice of motion prior to him leaving, and it's for the consideration at the March 15th meeting, and it's as submitted. You can read it and go from there, but it'll be brought up at the next meeting for discussion. Does any member of council have any other notice of motion? Councillor O'Brien, looking tentatively at you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to propose a notice of motion at this particular time, which to discuss further would need unanimous consent of council tonight, if we could do that. The notice of motion would be that staff be directed to prepare a letter of support addressed to Principal Terpstra for the construction of the Bolinas track, expressing its importance to the community and council support for the committee to seek grant funding for completion of this project.
I will proudly second that motion. Oh, we don't need it. Oh, no, it's notice of motion. Oh, yeah, we can
need
do it.
unanimous.
Would you like to do it tonight?
I would like to request unanimous
Okay,
consent.
that's fair.
Yes.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were just putting it on there. All right, so we need unanimous consent so that we can have this conversation. All those in favor? Pretty close to unanimous. All right, now we're up there and I've seconded it, so we're up for discussion. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. This notice of motion is referring to the fact that it's helpful to the Bolinas Track Committee to have a letter of support from the city of Parksville when applying for the various grants that they're trying to attain to allow for completion of this project. So that would be much appreciated at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Instead of going through a long conversation, I think we could take a vote because I got a feeling I know what the result will be here. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimously. Thank you. New business. At the January 18th council meeting, council passed a motion to approve, this is a housekeeping issue that we're going through, approve the extension of the Footprints contract to provide static guard and mobile patrol security services in the amount of $111,556.76 plus applicable taxes. Since that time, staff noticed an error with the purchase order in that the hourly rates were not captured correctly. This and the fact that a 1.5% increase was negotiated means that we are short $7,700 for the year. In order to correct this, the following motion must be passed. That council approve an increase of $7,700 plus applicable taxes to the Footprint security contract to provide security services for the city of Parksville for January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. I need a mover and a seconder for that motion. Moved by Councilor Greer, second by Councilor Chandler. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, before we proceed to special business, I'd like to advise the public that we will be having a special council meeting on March the 8th, 2021 at 3 p.m. to deliberate the 2021 budget and the 2021 to 2025 financial plan. The city's budget and financial plans may be accessed from the website, and budget details will be posted prior to the meeting. Our next regular council meeting will be held on March the 15th at 3 p.m. And I need a mover and a seconder pursuant to 91C and E of the community charter. Whoa. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I just kept right on going. My apologies. I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Councilor Greer. So remember all that I just said, so I don't have to say it again the next time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's no thunder in this at all. It's just a couple of notices that I like to present. One is the Brant Festival is underway now in March and April. And this year's been really difficult for them to organize events and so on. But I'll give you a few things that what they've done. Created a full, they just ran this full page ad in the paper, which I think everybody saw last week. Created educational videos about our special places. Created amazing, yet to be released bird trail map, self-guided tour. They planned a second Brant invasion during March of painted branch geese placed on various businesses throughout Parksville and Quilligan Beach. People can take selfies of these with the geese and upload them. The Eagle release will be filmed and released along with interviews of people who work to rehabilitate the raptors. So that's just a little, and I noticed that this weekend there was a lot of dogs were on the beach, which they are supposed to be barred now at this time. And maybe our bylaw enforcing officers can look into that. One other announcement is the ODCA meeting, which was the first one that's been held this year. And it was by Zoom, of course. And the only thing I'll mention is the election of officers. It pretty well stayed the same. The president is Michelle Jones, vice president Jamie Larson, treasurer is still Denise Cameron, and the directors are Dave Scott, Guy Fletcher, and a new director, Barry Blay, and Charmaine Smith, Patrick Maloney, and Sean Bennett and Stephanie Lindbergh. Those are the directors, and they were all put in by acclamation. So that's all. That's good.
Thank you. All right, now we can call a vote on, I need a mover and a seconder for going into camera. All in favor? Carried. Let's give it 5 minutes, please.